Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 1 of the Go Far Fast show. I can't believe, Aaron, we're already into another season already. And we're going trans-global in this season. So you will see guests coming at us from America, from Australia, and further afield too. Not quite the moon yet, but we're gunning for it. So a wonderful lineup for you all. As ever, this is designed for our small business community, and we are going to get you, once again, the answers to the burning questions of today. So we're going to be looking at some very big themes in today's show. We've got a stellar guest who has achieved incredible success, and we're going to be asking some really fantastic questions, aren't we, Aaron?
We certainly are. This is an absolute cracker. I think we've kind of set the bar high now, haven't we? And we just keep pushing that bar even higher. So today we somehow got ourselves with an hour with the wonderful Lisa Laing. Lisa is a successful entrepreneur for more than a decade. Lisa mixes practical business strategy with uncommon insights and delivers this in an engaging and charismatic story. She has built and sold 2 successful multi-million-dollar brands. So we're going to use this time to go through, and we're going to have a deep dive into what Lisa is doing today, how she decides to take on a new client, and any mentors that she can name drop. Then we head over to the favourite part of our show, which is the legendary community questions. So Mel, is there anything else the audience needs to know about?
So yes, folks, same format as always. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe as we go through. We're going to start off today's session with some warm-up questions for our wonderful guest, and then we'll be going straight into, as Aaron says, his favourite part of the show, your legendary community questions, really getting to the bottom of some of these very practical, very deep, very searching, very key questions for business owners today. So we've got a long list of questions. Are you ready? Do you want to get started on asking those questions to our guests, Aaron?
I certainly do. Lisa, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for giving your time up today and coming along for our little show. So you've had an incredible business success, launched and sold million-dollar award-winning brands, and now you're using all your amazing experience to help other women to do the same thing. Can you briefly describe the business you've launched and sold and what you're doing today?
So, in the last 14 years, I've had 7 of my own companies, and 2 of them have been multi-million-dollar award-winning brands, which were exciting and wonderful and awful and dreary all at the same time. And one of them was actually pretty successful. It was, it is the world's most eco-friendly nappy brand or diaper brand, depending on where in the world you are, and something I'm immensely proud of. We won lots of awards and accolades with that brand, and grew it to a few $1 million a year turnover on a subscription-based business model, and in a fairly new e-commerce market, because I launched that 8 years ago. And 2.5 years ago, I left the business and am now a business coach, and I specifically help people with growing their online brands.
It's amazing. It's such a path to success, and I know there's such an inspiring story behind it, but that path, Lisa, hasn't always been smooth or straightforward, has it? I mean, your success has come at immense personal cost, and I know that particularly struck me in a blog that you did recently on your Facebook group. Folks, if you're not following Lisa on Facebook group, you need to be doing this. It's an extraordinary group, but also an extraordinary story, Lisa. Would you mind sharing some of that journey and some of that personal experience with us today?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, being a mum in business is a really tough gig. And in my experience, about 7 years ago, I actually found myself running 2 companies with 3 little kids at home, and I was stuck on the mouse wheel, really, and I ended up having a bit of a breakdown. It was kind of like trying to work 60 hours a week and juggle the kids, and of course the pressure of the financial obligations of working in your own business. And I simply I buckled under the weight of it. And I think it's a very real thing, in particular for women, adrenal fatigue and feeling unsupported as mums as well. And I learned a lot from that point in my journey. And I guess I'm grateful for that experience now, because it was where I drew a line in the sand and decided that there was an entirely different way to build a business. And I wasn't prepared to give up my entrepreneurship and skills. I just needed to do it in a really different way that didn't, leave me with 60-hour weeks and exhaustion, and in actual fact allowed me to automate and systemize my businesses and have a really cool team of staff that were able to run the businesses so I could work on them and not in them. And that was a very big change in my life.
Absolutely. And it had a big impact on you and your partner too at the time, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. I mean, working with your partner in business is incredibly tricky, especially the complexity of having two incomes wound up in one business. So when the business has a financial month that's tough, or, a couple of months that are a bit rough, that is a huge pressure on a relationship. And juggling being parents at the same time, that's a lot of pressure. So I learned a huge amount about myself in that period, and not sure I'd work with a partner again in the future. But there you go. Lessons learned in business are tiger stripes and tears, and we learn from them and we move on.
Wow. And thank you so much for your honesty and being able to, share those experiences with us. I think it's really important that we concentrate on, yes, the great success that we've obviously brought you here to talk about today, but just being brutally honest about what can go wrong, what those pitfalls can be, and sharing your stories that you've just shared there is just so inspiring. And I think that's mainly what, people will see out of this, that it doesn't matter how bad they seem to have it or anything else, there is that chance to get it all back again, turn it all around like you did, and then actually go there and take it to another level. So that's really inspiring. You really touched on that really well in terms of telling us about your experience and how you look back and how you how it's been for you in that period. But can we just deep dive into that a little bit more? Can we talk about the fact that, given where you are now and when you look back at that period, can you think about what you experienced and how does it make you feel now? What have you learned? What sort of bits have you been able to take from that period and be able to pass on to the people that you help?
I feel a measure of sadness, really, because, life, one thing I've learned about life is that it never throws us the balls we expect. And when I set out to create the Nappy brand, I had really big goals. I wanted a $20 million brand, and I was wanting to, expand globally and sell in the US. And they're all wonderful goals to aspire to. However, I also had the personal aspect that appeared in that business goal, which was my marriage dissolved, and trying to find a way to the other side of that. While we had investors in the business too, so that becomes very complicated. And I learned a lot about business and about myself in that journey, and I have a huge amount of respect and time now for other business owners that have been through a similar journey, and it's something that I do every day in my current business, which is mentoring and supporting other business owners on their journeys to find and make the decisions that work best for their families first and foremost, but that still allow them to engage in their entrepreneurial desires and goals that they're wanting to achieve.
I love that answer. I mean, Frilio has always been about smashing barriers and making things possible for people, even when they feel impossible. But I think what you're doing, and particularly coming from that place of having hit rock bottom, knowing how that feels and being able to pull yourself out of there and achieve tremendous success after that, is a really powerful support to many other businesses around the world. And we'll come to the around the world bit in a moment. But Lisa, looking at your coaching skills, at the coaching services that you offer now, how do you decide who to take on as a new client? I know you're very much in demand. And where do you start with that new client relationship?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think for me, the main thing I'm looking for in a new client is the desire to want to achieve something. So I think, there's a huge number of, particularly women, but certainly men as well, who are looking for an off ramp from the corporate world. And, they have an idea for a problem, for a product or service that they think could solve someone's problem out there in the world. And that's incredibly brave. brave and courageous for people to leave an income and to back themselves. And often they don't have the support of their friends and family, and sometimes even their partners, to do so, but they do it anyway. And so for me, I really honour that bravery, and it's my greatest desire to help and support those people to be able to find the strategies, because the thing is, you can create a product and want to sell it, but have no business skills whatsoever to do so. I mean, they don't teach us this stuff in school, and there's an overwhelm of information online. So understanding how to solve problems inside your own business is very difficult for people who are on a granular level inside their businesses. And I think working with people like that, will any business owners is a real honour for me. I think where I start with them is their why. Understanding their purpose and their goals for their business, and then understanding their customers' why, the problem we solve for our customers. I believe that we need to sell in this current era of e-commerce, which of course since COVID has gone mental. I believe that we're no longer selling on features and benefits, but that in fact we're actually selling on the solution that our products or service offer. And for me, that's tied really closely with the business owner's why. If they know why they're building it, and often they are their own version of a customer, the transformation that they can deliver with their product, it's all tied in. It's a bigger purpose, I guess, than just making money, is what I'm trying to say.
I love it. And I love the fact that, as you said there, you're experienced in it. You've seen not only the smaller clients, but the bigger clients, and you've done it there yourself. So being able to give that advice, it's not just you're giving advice that you've read in a book somewhere, but it's advice that you've been there, done that, got the T-shirt. And I think it's so important where you mentioned there about the firefighting, because I think that's where most businesses are, especially during what we're going through at the moment, where it seems like everyone is just focused and all their attention is on the fires and trying to put the fires out and trying to make sure that they've got them out. But having someone like yourself just kind of steering them away from that and showing them the bigger picture and showing them how, they can get so much more done and their business can grow and their business can expand if they just concentrate on the right things, I think is such a huge part. The next bit we want to do, though, like you said, you've shown, how well that you're able to put a story together, convey a story, and be able to give mentors to other people. But let's give you a chance to name drop yourself. Let's talk about which incredible mentors during your career. So the question we want to go down and the route we want to look at now is, you've had some incredible mentors during the career so far. I've seen you give them shout outs on your website and the attributes of a lot of success to having great mentors. What's your advice to viewers who may be wondering whether a mentor is a good thing and how to get one?
I couldn't have done what I've done in business without exceptional mentorship. And I think every business owner needs to find people around them to support them with the correct strategies that can, solve their problems. The thing is, we shouldn't rely on our friends and family for that kind of support. I believe we need to look for people who've already walked the road in front of us, who have already solved the problems we need to solve. And then we need to go to them and find out why. How did they solve that problem and how their solution might apply to our problem? And for me, that constitutes a mixture of coaching with paid coaching, exceptional coaches, and mentorship, which is going to business leaders in the community who I know have solved a problem I'm trying to solve. And I approach them with a very specific problem, and I ask them for 10 minutes of their time, and I explain why, and I offer to ask them 3 questions and no more. And I find that that has allowed me to access some exceptional business mentors and leaders in the world. And I combine that then with exceptional coaches, and I've invested personally myself more than $150,000, that's Australian dollars, in coaching in the last 10 years, because I know without it, I'm left to make all the mistakes and take all the time and let my competitors, steal my market. And I'm too much of a hurry to get there quicker.
I think that's an absolutely brilliant answer. You have some great examples, haven't you, that you can share with our viewers about how you've approached some of your kind of rock star, North Star mentors and how they've helped you previously. Can you share some of those examples with us too?
Absolutely. So in my nappy brand, we had there's probably two I'll share with you. One in particular, we had an opportunity to pitch our nappies to big supermarket chains in Australia. And I don't know, it's probably the same in the UK, but they're quite corporate. And when you book an appointment with them, they don't really give you any information about what to pitch to them or how to prepare the pitch. And of course, you don't find that information readily available on the internet in any form that is able to be used. So we reached out to a business leader in Australia who has a global muesli brand, and Carolyn kindly offered to speak to us when she was on her morning commute to work. And it started with one conversation and it evolved to being support over a few months, to the point where she shared with us, quite business IP to do with their pitch to the supermarket chains and their figures and how they worked out their margins, and that that support from Carolyn allowed us to go quite confidently into the supermarkets, and in the end we decided that wasn't a route that we wanted to pursue, because it's difficult for a small brand to successfully move into supermarkets. But that information she shared with us, we never would have been able to find that information anywhere else. And then we had another exceptional example of a mentor. Here in Australia, in Asia, we have a wine home delivery company called Vino Mofo, and we knew that our nappy boxes were bulky, but they were also low margin. And people, when they want nappies, they wanted them, in an hour or two, or certainly overnight. So quick delivery. But we have a very big geography here in Australia. We're very spread out, and in fact, our delivery on e-commerce is quite slow. So we knew that wine would be similar, bulky, low margin, and people want wine yesterday. So we reached out to them and we said, how did you solve your freight problem? And again, Justin, who owns Vino Mofo, was fantastic. He spent a number of calls, probably in the realm of hours on the phone to us, completely for free at no cost, because we went to him and we explained who we were and how we had a very distinct problem. And we asked him if he would help us solve it with what they did. And I think when you come from a place of honouring that his time is really valuable, or their time is really valuable, and you're quite clear on the questions that you would like to ask with the boundaries in play, I think it would be very unusual for somebody who has experience to say no to that. So I feel there's a real opportunity for business owners to clearly ask for that support from the business community.
That's absolutely genius. Some real golden nuggets of wisdom and advice there for our viewers. I'm starting to rack my brains. I'm wishing I had a notebook. I could literally take notes as you were talking there. Lisa, can I talk finally about clients? So you do, I think, take on clients outside of Australia. I suspect many of our viewers will suddenly be thinking, oh, better go and look up the Facebook group, and better go and look and see whether Lisa would be the right kind of mentor for me and my business. And I know you're going to have lots of appeal to many of our viewers today, but how do we get hold of you, and do you take on clients outside of Australia?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing about the world at the moment is that we're a global platform, both from a business perspective and from a coaching perspective and from a staff perspective. I have team all over the world, and I absolutely look after clients all over the world. The only thing I will say is that the time zones don't always line up particularly well. So I was on a call this morning at 8 a.m. Sydney time, and there were people all over the world on that in rather unfortunate time zones. So absolutely, I would love to speak to any of your viewers that want to, and they can reach out to me through either my Facebook group or private message on Facebook or my website. I'd be more than happy to try and steer them in the direction of perhaps some free resources or some people that may be able to support them. I mean, I'm quite specifically online brands, but if it isn't me, then certainly looking for a business coach. And I guess my advice to anybody seeking a business coach would be to find somebody who's actually walked the path already, who has the experience in your particular industry or niche that you're looking to, that you are in. I think that the risk to people is to take advice from people who haven't got the experience, and absolutely looking for, in particular with business coaching, somebody who's already scaled and grown businesses, and proven success is a really big thing.
Yes, absolutely. There's a lot of theorists out there, not many people who've actually been through, trodden the path themselves, got the scars to prove it, but also know the way to avoid some of the mistakes or some of the challenges that they faced, or at least mitigate them for others. Thank you, Lisa. We have tons more questions, haven't we, Aaron? And I would love to keep asking you our questions, but the community will never forgive me. Sorry, guys, I am getting to your questions in a moment. For those of you interested in Lisa's philanthropy, Lisa, you and your town, and I know you Inspire this, did an incredible thing recently for a fellow town that was flooded out, and you managed to motivate an entire town to support a fellow town. Lots and lots more that we could be talking about in relation to Lisa. But Aaron, do you want to kick us off with the first of those legendary community questions?
Yeah, let's go straight for them. So our first question, and this is so potent, I think this is really kind of where a lot of mindset of especially at the moment. And the question here is really straightforward, but I know you're going to have some really good insights into it. So why do you think it's so much harder for women to be successful in business? I constantly feel like I'm judged for being female rather than having a good business idea and a great work ethic. Now, I know the question itself is not simple, or the answer is not simple, but it is a more prevalent problem at the moment, isn't it? So, Lisa, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really contentious question at this point in time. I know the female issue or empowerment issue in politics, for example, and in celebrities is a very common media point at the moment, and it's not really very talked about in a female business sense. But I can tell you the statistics show that less than 2% of female-owned businesses ever crack the $1 million mark, which is shocking and awful. And I don't know the stats of the male-oriented, but I know it's at least 5 times higher. So I do believe that women struggle. I know that female-led businesses trying to raise capital struggle a lot more than male-led businesses do. And I know in my particular instance of myself, and of course I had a male founder with me, and we did raise capital, but it was actually my male founder that the investor spent most of his time talking to. So I think I had a million experiences of going to meetings with banks or investors or, suppliers, and everyone would just look at my ex-husband and not at me. And I think that is absolutely in business. It's definitely a thing. I don't let it hold me back, though. I don't let it intimidate me in any way. And I feel that's the way that we need to approach it, is to assume that there's no barriers for ourselves and to put our all into everything that we do and plan for success.
I think that is such a powerful answer. I mean, I relate to so many of those statements that you just made. I remember being told very early on, Aaron, you know this story well, when we were founding Frilio and we were fundraising for the first time, being told by a potential target investor that we'd identified, well, it would be a brilliant idea if you just had a male co-founder. Like, why? What changes the idea from being brilliant if I'm male or female or there are co-founders in the law? It was extraordinary. And there was a journalist who reached out recently, we were laughing about this the other day, weren't we, who said, you do realise that you're only one of a handful of women in legal tech, in law, who's actually raised over £1 million. And I tend to keep a very low profile over here, because it's not about how much we've raised. It's about the good that we're doing and the purpose and the impact and, frankly, selling. But it really brought me up short. And this journalist was essentially saying, you need to talk out more, because if you don't, other people will believe it's still not possible to do. And that was quite an eye-opening conversation for me, but lots within that. I think we've got to refuse to be defined by this kind of statement, and as you say, go out there and go and do it, go and prove them wrong. But it is a hard challenge. I've got another question for you now, Lisa, from another community member. This one's one that I'm sure we'll all relate to. I'm working really long hours and trying everything I can think of. I've tried so many different ways to make my business work. What was it in the end that helped you to turn your business into success?
I think for me, it was around knowing exactly who my customer was and what their problem was. And then when I created the relationship with the customer, I maintained it. And I really worked hard at owning our customers. And I feel that I see it a lot in business where people spend a lot of money in marketing and attracting new clients as quietly their existing clients walk out the back door with no ceremony. You know, it's kind of crazy that we spend all this money and we bombard all of these people to try and come and buy our products, but we don't make our current clients absolutely feel completely loved and compelled to stay. So for me, I mean, there's different aspects to this topic, but knowing who your customer is, first of all, understanding what their problem is and how you can solve it, and talking to them, finding out how they feel about your product and your pricing, and would they buy it, and when they buy it, did they love it, and would they do a review and tell others, and really understanding and owning your customer, their journey and their experience, and keeping them as a customer. I feel that's probably the greatest gift that I learnt from my businesses that I could share with others.
Yeah, brilliant bit of advice. And I'm so glad that you've put it in that way, and you've not just basically said that you've got to work more hours, because I think there's that danger, isn't it, that you're just on the hamster wheel and you're just running and unfortunately not getting anywhere. So yeah, I think you've got that advice of pivoting and making sure that you're relevant and everything else is exactly where people need to be, and I think that's wonderful. And kind of similar lines really, and it's all about this working and making sure that we are working in the right kind of balance and everything else. And as you've already brought out about making sure you've got that family commitment and making sure you're being the best in that respect as well. But do you think it's ever possible to get a balance between work and having a life away from it? I don't know anyone right now who seems to be successful and has time for friends, hobbies, or other stuff. Have you got any advice for that? Because I know, especially during this time, it's been we've all been sat there trying to put as much work as possible into keeping our business afloat. So, what's advice have you got for that one? Is there anything that you can bring to the table?
I absolutely think it's possible. I think it's easy to fall back into the pattern of being addicted to business, but I do, and I have proven that it is possible with really clear strategies. I think we live in the most incredible time at the moment with our ability to use software to automate our businesses. We have access to low cost and cheap software that can absolutely change how we run our businesses. And I feel that in addition to a global workforce that allows us into any budget or any expertise category, find people who can help us inside of our businesses. I just think there's never been a better time to be growing a brand than literally right now, and incorporating those kinds of activities that in fact allow us as business owners to get off the mouse wheel and focus on building the business instead of running the business. And that's where we have the time to have lunch with friends and, be there for our kids and be present. And it absolutely can be done, but it does take a clear strategy, a lot of knowledge of somebody to help you to find those unique sets of activities inside of your business that will allow you to be a little freer, and dedication to the cause.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, that's probably where a mentor comes in, right? Somebody who can help you to see the wood for the trees when you're struggling a bit. So Lisa, another question for you here. What did it feel like to sell your business? And what made you decide to build another business afterwards? Some might say that's insane, but how would you answer that question?
Well, I seem to be a bit of a serial entrepreneur because I'm about to launch my 7th business. So I think when you've worked for yourself, it's actually quite difficult to conceive working for somebody else. I'm very passionate and empowered about being a high achiever and being a really exceptional project manager. So I feel the best person to do that for is myself. Selling my nappy brand was incredibly difficult, and I would never have done so if it wasn't for mitigating circumstances of divorcing my co-founder. And so that was heart-wrenching, if I'm really honest. And I guess the only part in it that has given me some light is that the brand itself is still growing, actually has doubled since I left it. And that is a legacy. It's an eco product, and it's solving and creating healthier babies around the world. And I'm immensely proud of starting that movement, if you like. And of course, anyone who's been in business will know that there are a multitude of emotions that go with being in business, and grief and sadness and, wonderment and excitement. They all fill the same hour.
The next question that we've got that come through is, And it's kind of on that same pattern as well. It's about, having that inspiration, feeling empowered, feeling like, you're doing everything right. And the community member here has got this question where they're saying that, what do you do when it feels like nobody believes in your idea or your abilities? I'm scared about what to do next. And, it is one of those things where you believe in what you're doing. You believe you've got it all correct. And you've got this, again, multi-million-pound idea, or even just an idea that's going to, help you and help your business and push forward. But how do you get others to believe in that? Have you got any tips or anything to help this particular question?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I feel that I would answer it in two parts. So the first part is that being in business actually really is a grind, and nobody talks about how much hard work you actually have to do, and it's relentless and it's a long slog, and there's no such thing as an overnight success, because in actual fact, anybody who does have success has actually, you haven't seen the hard slog for the 10 years before that for them to become an overnight success. So that's a part of it, is believing in what you're doing and knowing that you're going to put the hard yards in and staying to it, like go the hard yards and make it happen. Do everything you need to do and believe in it completely. But the second part of what I would like to answer that with is that there's this thing that I call proving the concept. And I feel a lot of businesses miss this part. You see, we are not our customer. And this is a mistake a lot of business owners make when they launch particularly products. They think, I think that's a great idea. I'm going to order an entire container of that and then I'm going to sell it. And they forget to check with the market and to make sure that their customers that are out there, their potential customers, would buy it and at the price point that makes them a profit. And so I think that the answer to that question is two-part. One, get in and do it. And two, but before you get in and do it, make sure that there's enough of a market there for you to actually make a business and a profit out of it, that you're not just going to sell 6 pieces a month and you're not going to be able to pay your own bills, So definitely be checking on that before you put your all in.
Yeah, it's great advice. You are not your customer. How many times, Aaron, do we hear the opposite of that said frequently? Thank you, Lisa. Another question, interesting question. I know you're going to like this one. What are your top tips for mums in business? And our viewer says, I've had my daughter 6 months ago and I'm trying to decide whether to go back to work if I still have a job. Or whether to take a big, in capital letters, risk, so a big risk, and see if I can freelance instead. I work currently in a call centre, but I'd love to use my sales skills to coach others to sell better.
I think that the world that we live in at the moment is an absolute golden opportunity, particularly for women, but really for anybody, to take the jump and work from home. Suddenly, it's funny because for years I've been talking about having a remote team working from home, and I did it long before it was trendy, and I was trying to teach people years ago, hey, get your team to work remotely, you'll save on office costs, and you won't have water cooler talk, and it's a really fantastic way to incorporate what I think is like a hidden resource in the world, which is mums that can work from home because they're multitaskers and fantastic workforce. And so suddenly COVID arrived and all of these teams are dismantling from their offices and working from home, and they've discovered that you can do your laundry while you're on Zoom calls. Like, it's brilliant. So for mums in particular, the freelance market is it's growing exponentially every month. I use a couple of freelance platforms to find staff all the time, and my staff on my freelance platform in particular, Upwork, are all over the world, and geographic location is no longer a barrier. So wherever you are, if you have the opportunity and a skill set that might be needed by somebody else in the world, absolutely there's an opportunity, particularly if you've got a new bub and you want to be at home so that you can be present for your family and earn an income. There's never been a more exciting time in our lives than to do it now. So I would say jump ship.
Oh, wow. Brilliant advice. Well, if you are listening, go jump ship. And the very best of luck to you. That's so exciting, really empowering.
Yeah, and I think both those answers help one another, don't they? Because you talked about remote working, you talked about part-time for making that jump. And that's, in the world we live in today, the gig economy and everything we've got, then if you've got the right skill set, you should be okay to find that part-time work to subsidise the fact that you are then taking that jump and you are trying to build up your business and you are trying to bring it in. And I think that's where we have a benefit now that we've never had before in terms of having that extra ability and that extra option to bring in that income. And I think that's something that a lot of people are using, and we've definitely seen clients do that, where they've jumped for the first time, but they're not just jumped into making their own business, but they've also jumped into their own consultancy business at the same time, because they're on, the gig economy, or however they're subsidising their income at the same time. So yeah, I think it's a really positive place for people to be able to make that jump at the moment, which is great.
So apologies if we haven't got to your question in today's show. Don't forget, if you are listening to the extended podcast, however, we've got more to come, and you will be able to hear Lisa's answers to those questions. So head off onto the podcast channel if you're not there already, and you can hear the extended version of today's show.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect start to season 2, isn't it? And this is exactly what we want. And again, thank you, Lisa, for being so honest. Thank you for telling us exactly how it is. I think what we want to make sure people are aware of is we're not just going to get books out and just read to you paragraphs from people who've, done it 10 years ago or whatever. We want to have people who have actually been there, done that. And the stories you've shared today have been inspirational, and there's little nuggets of inspiration in there, and also pearls of wisdom. Means that I think everyone's going to go away with this having a lot to think about and be able to improve their business going forward, which is what it's all about. So thank you very much, Lisa.
So that's all we've got time for this show, folks. Again, the extended podcast has any of the questions that we haven't got to right now for you. So if you're not on the podcast, don't worry, you can find those answers from Lisa there. Massive thanks again to Lisa for all the wisdom and for staying up the other side of the world so that we can get those answers from her. Aaron, as always, a pleasure. Have a wonderful week, folks. We'll see you again for episode 2 of season 2 next time. In the meantime, don't forget to go far, fast.